BBC World Service. This is Tim Franks with NewsHour. The boss of Greenpeace responds to Russia charging 14 of his activists with piracy.
What you're seeing in Russia is a legal system that protects the fossil fuel industry to a point where it is willing to undermine freedom of expression.
First, a bulletin of world news.
BBC News with Marion Marshall. The head of Greenpeace says Russia's piracy charges against 14 activists over a drilling protest in the Arctic are completely disproportionate. Kumi Naidu told the BBC the protest had been a peaceful act of civil disobedience and Greenpeace would not be intimidated.
A charge of piracy is completely disproportionate, unexpected, and by all legal opinion we've heard about the law of the sea, these charges are really frivolous at one level, but given the fact that it can carry 15 years in jail, clearly we as an organization are concerned for our activists.
As an environmental protest, this is the moment when Russian security forces fired warning shots into the water as the activists tried to climb onto the rig. 30 protesters were arrested and now 14 of them have been charged with piracy, a crime which carries up to 15 years in prison, and more Greenpeace activists are expected to be charged tomorrow, on Thursday. The executive director of Greenpeace is Kumi Naidu. He told me the Russians' handling of the incident.
When I say that it was unexpected, I say that only because last year the Arctic Sunrise participated in exactly the same action at the same rig. The Coast Guard was there. The Gazprom folks were saying to the Coast Guard, arrest them, and the Coast Guard said that they're peaceful and the instructions from Moscow was just to observe. We have to evaluate what this means for us, but I can say very, very loudly that we will not be intimidated and we will not be cowed by this disproportionate reaction.
And you will not change tactics?
Well, we are, as an organization, are constantly evaluating tactics and so on, and we are doing that at the moment, even prior to this. Some of the changes that we are making is campaigning more with people, in alliance with others, and so on. But we will not walk away from peaceful, non-violent direct action, something that has served not just Greenpeace and the environmental movement, but all justice movements over the decades, and we will celebrate non-violent direct action or civil disobedience. Our activists are very well trained. We take absolute precaution to prevent any damage to property and to person, both our activists as well as anybody on the, who works on any facility. But the danger that question must be morally answered now, the danger that our children and grandchildren are facing in a context where the real criminals here are the ones that are actually engaging in activities that might be legal now. Bear in mind, slavery, apartheid, women being denied the right to vote, all of those things at some given moment in history were legal. It was only when decent men and women said enough is enough, we're prepared to put our lives on the line, we're prepared to go to prison, that is only when change happened. Mandela showed it, Gandhi showed it, Martin Luther King, and we are building on that tradition. So we, of course, hope that our activists don't have to make such huge sacrifices.
But you're just to be clear here, you're describing the Russian government's actions in the Arctic as criminal.
Well, basically, all those governments that seek to pass laws that protect the fossil fuel industry, an industry that now is clear their activity is driving us to destruction. It is very clear that whether governments in power now and fossil fuel companies accept it or not, it's only a matter of time when accessing and harnessing fossil fuels will be criminalized, because it is what's destroying life on this planet as we know it. What you're seeing in Russia is a legal system that protects the fossil fuel industry to a point where it is willing to undermine freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression.
Kumi Naidu, the executive director of Greenpeace. You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Tim Franks. This is NewsHour.